now that, with that being said, with the basics of anxiety covered, okay, let's talk about some of the most popular, for lack of a better term, anxiety issues you see in your patients.
Mm-hmm.
So particularly, I think you were telling me workplace anxiety and social anxiety.
Yeah. Social anxiety. You're overestimating the chances of a negative outcome. What is that negative outcome in social anxiety? It's people evaluating you in a negative way, and you're overestimating the severity of the consequences of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to think I'm weird. They're going to tell everybody else that I'm weird. I'm going to have a negative hit in my self-esteem and all the rest of it. It's an overestimation of a negative judgment by another person or group of people, and an overestimation of the severity of the consequences of that.
Do you have a specific case that you've seen lately that dealt with that?
So clinical anxiety, social anxiety. Now you have this person, I'm sure a lot of people here can relate. Now, a lot of people watching are Gen Z, millennials. They're on dating apps. They're dating a lot.
Ugh.
A lot of them are feeling very anxious.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are my patients.
Dating apps are absolutely brutal. Oh.
Now, you know, when people ask me for advice as far as dating and anxiety, I approach this as a psychiatrist, right? I'm not a dating coach, but there's certain fundamentals as far as what attracts other people and also what repels other people. So let's talk about a specific example.
Okay, Hitch, let's go.
Hey, Doc, Dr. Hitch, Dr. Mike Mah. So we have Johnny, right? Johnny, he goes on a date with this girl.
You know, stupid name, Johnny.
Johnny.
You know what's even worse? Yoni.
Yoni.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why anybody would call their child Yoni. Shout out to Yoni Ophir, one of our best friends. So Johnny goes on a date, right? Things go well. He's kind of in the moment. He has a history of social anxiety, but honestly, even people without any sort of history of clinical anxiety can feel anxious in the dating world.
I would venture a guess, actually, we all do.
Yeah.
I mean, totally normal to feel anxious before a date. Totally.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I can relate. Now, a lot of people that are watching might relate. So he goes on this date. Things go reasonably well. You know, they have a couple drinks. They get a little bit loose. They have a good time. The date ends next day, right? Johnny sends a text. No immediate response, right? Now, what is happening in Johnny's mind with regards to anxiety?
He's saying, oh, she's not responding. She's trying to figure out what she wants to say to let me down easy. She doesn't like me. Maybe she's showing this text to her friends and they're all having a congress on about how she should
Yes.
respond, you know, and now they're dissecting my every word.
Exactly. Now,
Yeah.
Jeff is picking apart the socially anxious train of thought, right? She has not responded to me. It's been 3 hours. She must not like me. Oh my goodness. What did I say last night? Did I have a couple too many drinks? Did I say something that might have offended her? Did I say something that might warrant some sort of negative evaluation or judgment on me? Now, objectively speaking, he felt like the date went well. The objective evidence at hand tells Johnny that, hey, the date went well. Now, he has sent a text. There's no response within 3 hours. And now the anxiety sets in. This overestimation that there was some sort of a negative evaluation by his date.
Yeah. And we all know, I know we've all been there. And then anytime you hear your phone buzz, you check it. Oh,
Yeah,
telemarketer. Damn.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, you correctly outlined what are the anxious thoughts that go through his mind, right? What are the worries? Oh my goodness, she doesn't like me. Oh my goodness, I said something wrong. Now, when we feel this rise of anxiety and worry, as we know, that's distressful.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when someone is feeling a state of distress and anxiety, we feel compelled to engage in some sort of behavior to relieve that distress.
Affirmation, possibly.
Now, reassurance and getting
Reassurance.
affirmations is one.
Yeah.
So Jeff is happily married to a beautiful, lovely woman.
She's just as weird as me, which is something we'll get to later.
God bless that woman. Now, if you can reflect on the last time that you went on a date and you were feeling anxiety in a situation like this, first question is, can you relate to this? I feel like you can.
100%, of course.
And the last time you felt this anxiety when there wasn't an immediate response the day after a date, what did you feel? Did you feel like compelled to do something? How did you feel? What were your worries and what did you feel like you wanted to do about it?
So, Mike, I was compelled to send another text, okay, to just clarify to her, hey, you know, maybe I was a little drunk last night and I didn't quite mean all those things I said. So if you were thinking about not going on another date with me, maybe put those aside because I really am like more so the guy exactly you were looking for. Right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So let's, anxiety and compulsive behaviors. Now, one specific example, I'm like very glad you brought that up, that you're dead on. And a lot of people experience this. So in a way that we feel compelled to behave to relieve that anxiety that we're feeling, one example that you brought up is called undoing, right? I am anxious and worried that something I said on the date last night might have offended this woman, and now I'm being negatively evaluated and judged because of it. So undoing is one example of compulsive behavior to relieve that anxiety. What is the threat? I said something, I was a little bit too loose, it offended her. How do I undo that? I text her saying, hey, I had a couple too many drinks last night. Sorry if I said anything to offend you. This is a compulsive behavior called undoing, in which we literally try to undo something that we felt was offensive in the date that we had the evening prior or whenever it was.
You're saying, well, okay, let's forget that. Let's try again. But in actuality, I mean, maybe they liked it. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And mind you, in this scenario that we're like laying out for the audience, it has been a few hours and this person is getting anxious that they have not received a response. Now, this scenario, this anxious scenario that they're playing in their head is that this woman has not responded to me after 3 hours of my text. The worst case scenario is happening. She does not like me. Now, if I am now coming out of a place of insecurity, like, oh, she must be negatively evaluating me, something about my authentic self wasn't good enough, and you send this undoing text, it signals to the other person that this person feels insecure in his behavior last night. He's trying to do some sort of like take back. And typically, not typically, almost always in a dating situation, people, men and women, are attracted to confidence and security. Now, it's been a few hours that you have not received a text back, even if it's more than that. When somebody sees that you are insecure enough to act on your worry that she did not like you, and you send a text trying to undo some of your behavior from the night prior, people usually interpret that as a sign of insecurity.
And leave it in the comments how many times that's worked out for you. How many times have you sent a second text undoing part of your night before and it's actually worked out? I will bet never.
Yes,
We've all done this.
Exactly.
And it just doesn't, it's just not the move.
Now, this compulsive behavior of undoing is just one of many compulsive behaviors people engage in for social anxiety. Here we're choosing an example with dating. Now, other common compulsive behaviors, the infamous double text, right? And again, what is this compulsive behavior? You are anxious. You have a worry that there's some sort of negative outcome, and you feel compelled to engage in a behavior to relieve that anxiety. Humans notice when people are acting out of worry and anxiety and insecurity. And if you're talking about the dating realm, usually one of the most attractive things that you find when you're searching for a partner or a friend or whatever is that person feeling secure and confident. So those that listen to the first podcast can compare this with the workplace anxiety and the compulsive reassurance seeking and then manifesting your fear, right? Now here, you're manifesting your fear. this girl did not like me. She felt like there was some sort of something wrong with me. She evaluated me in a negative way. Now you are engaging in a behavior that exhibits low security, insecurity, also an inability to regulate your own anxiety. Now, of course, no one's perfect. If you engage in this sort of behavior here and there, other people may not write you off immediately. You might find someone that can relate to you in your anxiety.
I did.
100%.
Not with anxiety, but with all my other weird stuff.
Yeah. Now, and that's that's wonderful.
You did too.
Yeah. And that's wonderful.
He's weird. Yes.
A little more weird than I present on camera here, actually. Yeah. God bless Danny.
Yeah. Good woman. Good woman.
But again, if you're a clinically anxious person and you're doing your best and you still engage in these behaviors, will that then select for a population of women that you're dating that are more forgiving and accepting of someone that is clinically anxious? Yes. But will that likely narrow your pool of people that want to go on a second date with you? Yes, because people are attracted to confidence and security.
Mm-hmm.
And is that you necessarily putting your best foot forward? No, it's not. Well, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm a little of a romantic. So I think I would prefer the truthful approach where they didn't, they tried to put their best foot forward, but they maybe didn't. And the person they were dating still comes back for a second date. In my opinion, that's a win.
Yes.
Right. Because it is just truthfully yourself, you're acting yourself and you didn't put your best foot forward. But like, as relationships go on over the long term, there's no way they're not going to see the side of you that you deem negative. There's just no way. So having somebody who already has shown that they might accept that, or who maybe even likes that about you, or maybe they're the same way themselves or whatever else, is a win in my opinion. And just being realistic about dating in general, and dating for someone that's good for you specifically and not good, with concerns to whatever ideal you think is good, society deems is good or whatever else.
Absolutely. And the people that I'm working on this with are here because they view this as a problem and they want to improve on this and they're asking for advice. So the patients that I'm giving this advice to are the ones that are identifying this anxiety and their compulsive undoing and double texting and the rest of it as a problem.
Yeah.
So this is the advice I would give. Now, if your stance is, hey, this is me, I want to select for people or women that are accepting of this and that recognize that I'm anxious and I might act on that anxiety, then wonderful. But my advice that I'm giving specifically now is for those that are considering this a problem and their goal is to be more secure and their goal is to better able to regulate their anxiety and better able to not allow that anxiety to drive their behavior.
It really all comes back to self-esteem every time.
It all comes back to self-esteem. I mean,
building healthy self-esteem is going to make you better on dates.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to make you better in every aspect of your life, especially dating and looking for a partner. So that would be, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Dating is particularly brutal. Should we maybe touch upon a bit about modern dating and swiping through?
Oh my God, there's so much to talk about that.
I mean, should we touch on that?
Let's get to that. I want to address one thing you said before we get to that. Okay. Now, being a romantic, right? Typically, and showing all parts of yourself, being fully authentic, being accepted for your strengths, but also being accepted for your weaknesses.
Yes.
Usually for that sort of romantic, forgiving sort of nature, usually we require some sort of attachment and bond to already be formed, which is why after the first date in this example that we're giving, we want to put the best foot forth.
That makes sense.
Because after just the first date, people are much quicker to discriminate against things that are off-putting from the person they just went on a first date with.
Yeah. I guess that kind of goes to speak about why dating is so particularly anxiety producing, because really you are honestly on display to another person. And if you're really trying to form any sort of real relationship, you really are putting yourself honestly out there, and any criticism is going to hurt that much worse.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Any social interaction, initiating any sort of relationship, whether it's a friendship or romantic or otherwise, carries with it an intrinsic risk of rejection. Now, we can get to authenticity as well. I mean, I know you asked a question as far as like dating apps these days, and I'm gonna come back to that. But authenticity. Now, the more authentic you are in your interaction, the more of a risk there is, because if someone rejects you when you are being authentic, that is going to sting and cause more pain than if you were more superficial and just telling that person what they wanted to hear. One of the truly necessary aspects of being a human being and living and feeling well is having deep, emotional, authentic ties with your friends and your loved ones and your romantic partner. The more authentic you are, the more risk there is, because when your authentic self gets rejected, that is much more painful than if some sort of superficial, inauthentic you was put on display in the date.